Welcome. Welcome to this online worship service with the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are religious liberals. Liberal means generous, open, welcoming, inclusive, including people, including beliefs. We have a broad spectrum of beliefs among us, and we don't think that's a problem. We think it's a good thing. At the same time, we do know that there are limits. Not everything goes here. Unitarian Universalists value truth and reason, freedom, equity, equality, democracy, justice for all, not for some, for all. Above all else, love is at the heart of this community. Love for each other, love for what is right and good. And we do not tolerate any actions that harm anyone or the common good. This is why you will find us out there among the first to arrive to hold up a sign and to protest lawfully. I'm Reverend Deborah Cayer. I'm the lead minister here at ERUUF. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your language or your country of origin, whatever your race, your ethnicity, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, if this description of this community is what you have been weary for, what you have been longing for, know that you are welcome here. If you're visiting, please do introduce yourself. Put your name in the chat box. You will be welcomed, and you will find a link there that will open a page with more information about this spiritual community. There's an inquirer's class today at noon. Everyone is welcome, especially visitors, and anyone who would like to become a member. Information about how to get to inquirers will be available at the end of our service. We've got some wonderful online groups and classes right now, and you can find information on our website. Today, I want to draw your attention to two important online opportunities that we've created for people to gather, for anyone who would like to talk about events of this past week with others in a small group. The first opportunity will be at coffee hour immediately after today's service, and there will be information on your screen at the end of the service about how to find coffee hour. And the second opportunity for conversation in a small group will be at 1 o'clock. That's hosted by our beloved Conversations group. And the link to get to that beloved Conversations group conversation, that'll be posted on our website around at least by noon today. Okay, two opportunities, coffee hour and 1 o'clock with beloved Conversations group. We are offering these opportunities to talk because this past week was such an exceptional one in our nation. We saw amazing voter turnout in Georgia and the election of that state's first Black senator, and some of you were involved with supporting that effort. And of course, we also witnessed things never before seen in our nation's capital in our lifetimes. An armed mob of terrorists who were set into motion by our own president swarmed the halls of Congress, intending to do violence to our elected officials, threatening journalists as they went on a rampage with Confederate flags and nooses and other desecrations in halls. that for so many of us are hallowed spaces. They were barely confronted as they did all of this, and this weak response on the part of police was the exact opposite of the force that was used against people, especially people of color, who were legally protesting racial injustice this past summer. That contrast shows us so clearly the ugly parts of our nation's history that some of us have only started to comprehend. If you're upset this week because you've seen and understood all of this for far too long, and your ancestors have too, and your children as well, I hope that you are taking good care of yourself. If you're hurting, on the other hand, because the size of all of this and the pattern of all of this is just starting to reveal itself for you, set an intention to lean in, or say a prayer asking for guidance so that you can keep learning what needs to change, starting with yourself. And find someone to talk to. There are lots of people here in this fellowship who are willing to hang out with you while you tend yourself and care for yourself while you wake up. We can do that with each other and for each other. And so at this time, I'm going to light this candle. I light this candle for our country and for our democracy, for justice, for the power of many different perspectives, many different ways to understand truth, that we welcome with respect and with love, and we expect respect. We expect love in return. That's what we do here. I light this candle for the power of love, which shows up in our actions when we're courageous enough to answer the call of love, of a larger love especially. We are Unitarian Universalists. We answer the call of a larger love. And so yes, Black lives matter to us. And yes, we believe that every vote counts, and we work to make that real. And yes, we say this land is your land, this land is our land, together, yours and mine. And we're just tending it for the greater good anyway. And we believe that it includes every one of us, no exceptions. We're going to focus on that this morning. That spirit of love is what's holding us. Our prelude this morning was written and is performed by ERUUF member Helen Wolfson. This original music was in last week's service, along with another beautiful original piece also by Eric Thomas. But there were technical difficulties, and few people have had a chance to see that service. And so we're bringing some parts of it back this week, the music. This is our prelude, Lanyap Promenade by Helen Wolfson. This first week of January, we've been thinking about truth. The search for truth is so important to Unitarian Universalists. The ways we search and the ways we answer the world's crises are with our love and with the choices that we make. We figure so much of this out together in community. This is an important part of what it means to be a member here. And this morning, 3 of our members are going to share their credos with us. They are Gerda Presson, Lisa Jones, and Eric Hodges. And together, we are going to do the opening words and the chalice lighting. The opening words today are ERUUF's covenant. These are our values and the shared commitments that hold us together as a community. This is a living, evolving document. And so, today, we covenant together.
As a people ready to be changed by our evolving understanding, we covenant to practice right speech by bringing and assuming good intentions in every conversation, by respectfully listening and questioning kindly, and by speaking with humility.
We commit to make our spaces supportive, our dialogue compassionate, and our diversity deep, broad, and proud. We promise to seek out and welcome difference, work patiently through challenges, support and comfort each other as we live our Unitarian Universalist values.
Recognizing the fierce courage needed to confront and disarm systemic racism, homophobia, and fear of the other, we accept responsibility for what we say and do, and for what we do not say or do.
Mindful of our desire to create a more loving and just world, we covenant to seek support from the wise and experienced when we fall short, and to begin again in love.
And as people of faith, hope, and love, we will leave room for all.
We light this chalice to help us move from untruth to truth, to help us move from ignorance to wisdom, to help us move from animosity to love, to help us move from bondage to freedom.
We rededicate ourselves before this light to affirm and practice truth, wisdom, love, and freedom today and in the days to come.
We have the chance to sing together. Our hymn this morning is "For All That Is Our Life, We Give Our Thanks, We Give Our Praise." Pam will lead us, and the words are on the screen if you'd like to sing along at home.
To Good morning. I'm Beth Harvat.
And I'm John Rawls, and we're here to tell you about an upcoming series of classes called Coming of Age for Adults. It's organized by the Adult Programs team and is open to everyone at ERUUF.
So John, what's the purpose of this class?
The purpose is for you to explore who you are as a spiritual person. We often think of coming of age as something that teenagers at ERUUF do as they pass into adulthood and explore their spiritual practices and beliefs. And most of the world's cultures and religious traditions have some version of this, like the Jewish bat mitzvah. But the truth is that coming of age is something that we do over and over again as adults. Faith development really is a lifelong journey. And in this class, we ask adults at ERUUF to think about how faith develops over their lifetime and what faith means to them.
So for people that attend this class, what can they expect? How will they be challenged?
In this class, we'll explore some big questions. What does faith mean to you? What do you trust or turn to when you're looking for answers? How has life taught you about what is most important? And how do you use those lessons in your everyday life? We'll help you understand where you are in your spiritual journey, where you are from, where you've been, where you are now, and where you want to continue moving toward. Finally, you'll be asked to write a statement of faith that can be a reference point for you on your future journey.
So when is the class and who should attend?
The Coming of Age for Adults classes will be at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoons from January 24th through February 28th, and all classes will be by Zoom. Registration is required using the link in the e-news or on the ERUUF website. This class is open to everyone at ERUUF, whether you're younger or older, whether you're new to Unitarian Universalism or a seasoned ERUUF member. Everyone can benefit.
So that's certainly true. Please remember to register, and we'll look forward to seeing you on January 24th. Thank you for your time.
They will be the leaders of that class. That was Beth Harvat and John Rawls from our adult programs team. We do this, we investigate our own faith because Unitarian Universalists don't have a creed. What holds us together is our covenant, the promises that we make to each other, especially to support each other's spiritual journey. Those promises are between us, but what's most important here in our community is they also include the sacred. They include an ultimate dimension, ultimate reality. And so while we do not have one particular creed that we all assent to, we do take our faith very seriously. We are also the people who cannot help but ask why, and also, why not? If you were ever punished or if you were ever threatened for asking these kind of big questions, these important questions, the ones that blazed inside you that wouldn't leave you alone until they just had to come out, the ones that pushed you to find answers that would not leave you alone until you set out to look, we welcome you home. You might just belong here. For Unitarian Universalists, questions become a quest to find our own genuinely authentic answers. We may not find the be-all, end-all correct answer for all time, but we find the answers that make the loneliness and the uncertainty worth it. These are answers that can only come from a spiritual journey, and this is how we do religion. We take this seriously, and one of the things that we promise each other is that we're here to support each other as we make these journeys over and over again throughout our lifetimes. Credo means this I believe, and credo can only come from what you've discovered on your journey, the meaning that you've made out of the events that have happened to you, not someone else's journey, your own journey. The poet David Wagner writes from the Pacific Northwest, and in so many of his poems, he locates the inner workings of his spiritual life outside of himself, within the wilderness of the coastal rainforest. He listens to the animals and to the birds and just listens to the trees and notices. And that's where he sees the inner workings in harmony with all of that. He sees himself as part of nature. So we're going to share one of his poems before each person shares their credo.
The poem Lost by David Wagner is about how we stumble upon and what it takes to enter into mystery and presence. It says, "Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or bush does is lost to you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you."
Gerda, can you unmute yourself? Nope. So there's a little microphone.
Got it.
There you go. Great.
My name is Gerda Presson. I grew up in a family of German immigrants who believed in God. My Oma, my grandmother, lived with us, and she tucked me into bed each night, and we would sing a lullaby together in German, which asked God to watch over me while I slept. She conveyed me a sense of a loving God, one who cared. When there were more children, she used to sit in the living room easy chair with a bowl of fruit. We'd gather at her feet as she peeled and sectioned and fed us the fruit like little birds in her nest. She epitomized love and caring for me, and she had the warmest hands when she held me in her arms. As a child, that was sort of like God's embrace. I attended a Lutheran school through grade 8, went to Sunday school every week, and was confirmed in the Lutheran Church. In college, I became a Presbyterian, no particular reason, they fed us well, and remained an active Christian, even in a Sunday school teacher. But over time, much of the doctrine didn't work for me anymore. I think I still believed there was a God, but it wasn't the church's God. It was my Oma's God, a caring and nurturing God. Since both my husband and I were teachers and we had long summer vacations, we bought a camper and took our daughters to experience the world. We spent a great deal of time in the outdoors. We hiked, we visited wildlife refuges, we observed plants and animals. We would spend a long time watching animals in zoos. When we lived in Australia, we spent a whole afternoon on a beach on Kangaroo Island, watching a large group of Aussie sea lions just hanging out with each other, the couples snuggling up with one another, the young pups pestering the adults and chasing each other. We hung out on another beach at dusk one time, watching the fairy penguins come to swim in from a day of feeding at sea and waddling with full bellies to their rookery to reunite with their mates. Some were met with smoochy reunions, others got yelled at. We imagined she was yelling because he'd been out too long. We visited different cultures, such as those of Native peoples, the Navajo, the Hopi, the lost Anasazi. After my daughters were grown, I took off on my own. I traveled by plane, train, ship, bus, helicopter, even camel. I hiked, biked, and dove in the deep seas. This is my world, and I was intent on communing with it as much of it as I could. Nothing can compare with the majesty of snow-peaked Himalayas, nor the silent embrace of life in the depths of the sea. For me, this is where God lives. I don't know what God is. I don't believe it is a being that I'm going to meet after I die. I don't know if God is a universal energy. I'm okay with the not knowing. I just know that this earth is God's gift. I'm addicted to nature programs on TV, and no matter how many times I see them, the wonder never gets old. The ospreys are birds which have the longest migrations from the bottom of South America up to the northern reaches of North America. And they seem to know just how to time their journey to arrive on a Caribbean island at exactly the right moment when the sea turtle eggs are hatching and provide them with necessary nourishment to continue their journey. In turn, they provide the service of culling what would be far too many sea turtles in the sea. This is but one small example of how all of life on Earth was created in this perfect balance, predator and prey, the perfect cycles of light and darkness, all to perpetuate this life. The Garden of Eden, if you will. And then there are Adam and Eve, you and me. Adam and Eve were tempted, and look where it got them. We have our egos, which get us into trouble. We are the caretakers of this planet and even the universe beyond, and we're not doing a good job at it. I believe we will be one with God when we feel a part of this beautiful creation, when we recognize that some of our behaviors continue to foster the earth and some do not. I'm heartened to learn that many scientists are studying and experimenting with ways to reduce our carbon emissions and protect the layers of atmosphere needed to sustain life here. Still, I worry that we are destroying our garden faster than they can find ways to fix it, or at least slow its destruction. But even as individuals, there are things we can do. Eat less meat, don't use plastic bags, compost, plant trees, recycle. My dad was a farmer in his suburban backyard. When he traveled to faraway places, he would collect seeds to plant in his garden to create beauty and bounty. We should always find some time to just dig in the dirt. If you live in an apartment and don't have access to that, I'm sure Beth Harvett, our ERUUF garden chair, would be happy to help you with that. Another aspect of this creation is that we are herd animals and we need each other. My daughter Kathy had a horse who we boarded at a farm where each horse had their own outdoor paddock, but the paddocks didn't abut, so the horses couldn't even nuzzle. Our horse got so miserable and testy that one day she tried to jump out of this tall enclosure to get to another horse, and we ended up with a sizable vet bill to repair her injured leg. We humans are no different. Scientists talk about herd immunity, but we also need herd togetherness. And of course, the pandemic is making that very difficult. We gather in community, this beloved community, because we need each other in every way, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Since we are part of this creation, we can be whole only if we live in harmony with this creation, which includes each other. But it means more than just physical contact with those around us. There are people on this earth who do not have the basic necessities of life, shelter, and food. We cannot be whole within ourselves if there are others who cannot even survive. We live in a wealthy country, and yet there are people here who do not have the basic needs for survival. So in addition to recycling, we need to work together, creating government which can bring together the efforts of others around the world to care for this earth. For me, to believe in God is to be whole with this extraordinary creation, to keep trying to get back into the Garden of Eden. This God is like my Oma, who embraced life with love and nurturing, and my dad who cherished its bounty.
A footnote for Isaiah 43 by David Wagner. The other kinds of voices that cry in the wilderness were much too numerous for Isaiah to mention then, concerned as he must have been with the coming of his Lord. The desert had heard it all before, the cracked lips croaking, "Help," or "For God's sake, water," or maybe forecasting disasters or doom again. But for those lost in the woods, which is also a wilderness, a shout is a warning, meaning, "Here I am," or "Stay away." And even singing or talking announces personal space and a claim of territory. And whistling, squealing, and crying are dangerous, strange attractors that call all predators to come to the chaos now, to join in the consumption and quick reorganization of a living organism, namely what used to be you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Jones, and this I believe. In this credo, I use many names for God interchangeably, as one of the greatest beliefs I have is that it doesn't matter what you call him, her, or it, as long as you call. Like many of you, I wasn't born you. We found each other about 2 years ago, and I learned the unique way that I saw religion actually had a name. I was raised in a very religious household by my grandmother, who was twice married to Baptist ministers. Each week brought mandatory Sunday school and morning worship until about 1:30 p.m. After a quick meal, we returned for an evening service. Wednesday was prayer meeting, Friday was Bible study, choir practice was Saturday, and vacation Bible school was in the summer. But in a world where Christian Black women are the norm, I found myself an outlier. This reflection, writing this credo, proved quite challenging. How does one describe the complexities of belief with the limited vocabulary of the human brain? Quietly, I sat, eyes closed, and just began to type. This I believe. That we are spirit, having a human experience. Our body is simply the costume in which we travel. Beneath it, we are all extensions of God and born spiritually perfect until trauma moves us further from the divine. Our ultimate purpose is to return to oneness with God by sharing our innate talents in order to love, help, and connect with one another. Returning to God is a choice that requires an awakening that comes in stages and ways each of us can personally embrace. Therefore, I believe that each spiritual journey is as unique as our DNA. I experienced my first awakening as a child sitting in church. The preacher said only those who believed like us were going to heaven, so spread the word so others could join us at the right hand of the Father. My young mind immediately thought, well, that's not fair. What about the kids whose parents didn't tell them about Jesus? Why would he send them to hell? I thought he loved everybody. When we got home, I asked Grandma. She thought for a moment, then turned to me and quickly yelled, "Girl, you don't question the Lord." I started to say I wasn't questioning him, but the preacher. But Grandma had a quick hand for what she deemed to be a smart mouth, and mine was within striking distance, so I let it go. But I still couldn't dismiss the feeling of, this just doesn't feel right to me. Fast forward to November 1993 in a New York alcohol rehab center. I was 28 years old and listening to someone read step 3 of the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. Sure, I had heard them wrong. I quickly opened the guide to read it for myself. It read, "We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. as we understood him was written in italics, and I read it repeatedly. It was in that moment I discovered there was more than one way to see God. It's been 27 years since that day, and I'm led by two core convictions. One, to make choices based on love, and two, to do no intentional harm to others. I feel no need to label my beliefs, but broadly they're holistic, reflecting a need for balance and wellness in mind, body, and spirit, so that we may be happy, healthy, and whole. I simply call it my truth. My truth is when something doesn't sit right in my body or spirit or makes me feel overwhelmingly wonderful, I should ask why. Because I found it's one of the ways God speaks to and directs me. I believe in the law of attraction, which states we manifest that which receives our energy and attention. That choice is one of the greatest gifts from the universe, because if someone presents as unlovable, I have the choice to love them anyway. I don't need their permission. If they don't want to be led, I can choose to lead anyway, and they can choose to follow or not, because my choices are no more important than their choices. That if someone tries to take away my choice or my voice, that they are not of God. There are only two root emotions which cause me to act. That is love and fear. And that both cannot fill the same space at the exact same time. So whenever possible, I should always choose love. That it's okay not to know or understand what I'm meant to do or what an event in the world means. That if I pray with loving intention and release the uncertainty to the one, my next steps will be shown to me when the time is right. Yes, I learned patience. That while I come from spirit, from perfect spirit, my behavior is not, nor is it required to be. I'm only to be the best I can be at the exact moment in which I'm living. To remember in its purest form, my soul is absent of fear and pure potentiality, which should be used to manifest that which reflects the divine. And lastly, to express gratitude and remain open to grace, while remembering if I fall short of my intentions today, I can always restate them and start again tomorrow.
At this time, I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation and spoken prayer. Be with us, God of life, Spirit of love. Float us on the sea of your mercy. Fill our lungs with the breath of your compassion. Help us find our courage to face the truth that's emerging about what's really happening in the heart of our democracy. The truth about what life's really been like in our country for Black and brown people for hundreds of years. Help us see that all of this, all of it, is part of the same story. Open our ears that we might hear each other. Open our mouths so we can effectively speak truth to power. Open our hands so we can reach out to each other. Open our minds so that we can be wise enough to follow leaders who know what's what and what we need to do now that the curtain of illusion has been pulled down. Help us find the humility and the steadfastness to work together for the justice that is crying at the door, trying to come into our community, our country, our own hearts and minds. We give thanks this morning. Thanks for the common, ordinary people, names known to us and unknown, who gave, who still give their all for the common good. Among them this week, we lift up Stacey Abrams and everyone who knocked on doors and called and texted throughout Georgia this past year and then doubled down after November. All the people of this fellowship who joined them, who fought for these same rights here in our own state as well. We give thanks for all who listen before speaking their truth simply, lovingly, courageously to family and friends, who don't shame or blame, but invite others continually into honest, authentic relationship. In this way, they are helping to co-create heaven on earth. Fill them with strength, O Spirit, for they are weary. Let's join together in silence for a few moments to consider what is most urgent in our own hearts. This morning we hold in our hearts all these members whose joys, sorrows, and milestones have happened over the past several weeks, and we catch up with them now. This morning we remember in our hearts the families of longtime ERUUF members Anna Smiley, who died on November 3rd, Harriet Hooper, who died on November 6th, and Barbara Rogers, who passed away on November 23rd. Emily Cox, who has asked for healing prayers as she recovered from a concussion. Kathleen Monaghan, who has been recovering from shoulder surgery. Peter Romine and Beth Harvat, who celebrate the birth of their grandson, Oliver Price Romine, on November 22nd, to parents Jack and Aspen Romine. Our hearts are with Ted Fisk as he grieves the loss of his brother David, who died in mid-December. And we rejoice with Candace Caraway, who is elated that pen pal Fuzzy Best will get a new trial after 28 years on North Carolina's death row. We hold in our hearts Julie Edmonds and her parents, her sister and brother-in-law, who live in Provo, Utah. Her family have been battling COVID-19 and they are slowly improving. And this morning we also hold Julie Welsh, whose mother, Phyllis Joan Welsh, age 90, died on December 9th in Texas. This morning we hold in our heart all who endure daily challenges, life-altering illness, recovering from surgical procedures, caregiving for loved ones, loss of loved ones. And we pray this morning for the unspoken aches and dreams that we carry in the intimate spaces of our hearts. All this we lift up to the Spirit of life and love as our offering of what is most essential and most precious this day. May it be so. Amen. And I believe next we have Spirit of Life.
I'm Gerda Presson, and I'm going to read a poem by David Wagoner called Stones, How Stones Are Transformed Over Time. A similar transformation naturally happens to humans too. I bring them from the mountains, from the sea, from the edge of the streams, and look at them, heft them, hold them hard while I keep holding themselves harder. It is because they have had to change their surfaces in our time, though in theirs they've suffered the blunt demands of ice and water and wind and God knows fire, been cracked and frozen, thawed, made molten again and again, have started over grinding and being ground from monument to boulder, to rock, to river stone, to gravel, to pebbles, to sand, to slurries of grit, to dust.
Good morning. My name is Hodges, and it's been so interesting to hear the words of my fellow members today and think about the parallels in our journey. In reflecting on Wagner's poem, I've entitled this Belief Like a Stone. As a child, I was raised Southern Baptist. I was taught about the life of Jesus, and I also learned about eternal damnation. Being a compassionate child, I thought of becoming a missionary one day to save as many souls from hell as I could. As a young teen in the mid-'80s, however, as I learned more about the world around me and was exposed to images of babies dying of famine, I questioned how the God of my church could allow all of those innocents to be damned before they ever had the opportunity to hear the word. I suppose you could say that the weathering or tumbling of my stone of belief was beginning. I found the words, or lack thereof, of leaders in my church about my questions unsatisfying, and I was thirsty for knowledge. I turned to books and fortunately discovered the works of Joseph Campbell. The Power of Myth was a revelation. Of course, I had been warned in my church to beware temptations that would lead me to question my faith. But learning about the beliefs of human cultures throughout history led me on a journey of discovery that felt like the right path. Books such as Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, and Thomas Merton's The Way of Chuang Tzu remain permanent additions in my library. And learning about the history of the church gave me insight into the role of fallible humans who claimed to speak for God. I have as much skepticism about any faith's claims about any one true God as I do about beliefs that God doesn't exist. As humans with limited faculties and senses, I find it hard to believe that anyone can truly claim to know. As for those claims, I rest comfortably in uncertainty. As a nurse, I have had the deep privilege of caring for people at the beginning of their lives and at the end. And I've embraced my profession's focus on the art and science of the human response to health and illness. I've cared for people with a number of faiths and endeavored to meet them where they are. I no longer feel the need to proselytize to save anyone that I did in my youth. Walking away from the church of my childhood was frightening and painful. But the more that I've learned and experienced over the years of my life, the more I've come to trust the inner voice that was always there. Walking away from the church was not walking away from the way of the Spirit. The examples of Jesus, the Buddha, and Taoist sages, among others, inspire me to embody my beliefs through my actions and my way of being in the world. As them, I find peace in nature and solitude. I know there are experiences yet to be had that will crack me open, tumble me, transform me, and I welcome them as I continue along my path.
Thank you, Eric, Gerda, Lisa. Thank you all for sharing the truth and the wisdom of your hard-won wisdom. That tumbling that you've all described as the surface of your life and of yourself has been tumbled like a stone in nature over millennia. Namaste, my friends. At this time, we're going to listen to a gorgeous piece of original music by our ERUUF member, Eric Thomas. And while we do that, if you would like to make a contribution to the work of this fellowship, you can find information on how to do that in the chat box. This is Starlight by Eric Thomas. Okay. We give thanks for all the gifts so generously given, the gifts of truth, the gifts of shared journeys, the gifts of financial support that help to weave the fabric of this beloved community. We're going to sing. We have a final hymn this morning. Pam will lead us in the song Answering the Call of Love.
Faith, hope, and love.
We are Unitarian Universalists. We answer the call of love with our living, our actions, our choices, and our commitments. Hear these closing words by Unitarian Universalist Duke Gray. May the blessings of truth ever be upon us. The power of love direct us and sustain us, our coming in and our going out. And may it preserve the peace of this community from this time forth. Until we meet again, friends. Until we meet again, online, in person, hearts joined together, beating with love as one. Amen. Namaste. Go do good things. You're not alone.